Yeah, so as mentioned, we recently updated the documentation. So if you look at the docs now, we kind of simplified the menus a little bit. Um, and um, and if you look at the documentation section here, we've tried to kind of just try to update the docs given the recent changes to the V2 framework, as well as to the foundation and the governance and everything. So now this documentation is really just all about how to use Hummingbot, and we've moved all the guides over to this one Academy section over here, and we'll try to add more over time, but hopefully this Academy section will have kind of guides, not just from what our team, but also ones that the community has contributed. So I know that Emerald has an objective guide that's currently in review. I'll try to review that and get that published in the next couple of weeks. But overall, we're hoping that this kind of accounting section is kind of like a one-stop shop for everything on just like the latest guides on how to use the latest features that we're launching in Hummingbot. We've actually launched a lot of stuff recently that's we haven't really documented, unfortunately. But basically, the documentation now should talk about all the various ways you can now use Hummingbot, because it's not just a client anymore. There's dashboard, there's backend API, there's Quants Lab, and there's basically other ways that you can kind of like use the same exchange integrations we've had, but in like as a developer, as a researcher, and other ways as well. We've also tried to publish more info on kind of how the connectors actually work in Hummingbot. Basically, there's two types of connectors. There's order book connectors, and there's automatic market maker or AMM. And so basically, the CLOB connectors are the ones that are in the Hummingbot code base. Oh, actually, let's actually update this one still. But basically, the CLOB connectors are the ones in the Hummingbot code base, the ones that are in Python, and kind of like are split between spot connectors and perpetual connectors. And so we because we're kind of redesigning the governance system so people actually allocate maintenance toward these types of connectors. I want to just explain that this is kind of like the very standards we have in Bot. So this list here is all the order book connectors that we have for the various exchanges. But some of these exchanges like Binance, we have both the spot and the perpetual connectors. And we also have built kind of like channels, feeds, and everything else that allow people to fetch data using those connectors. While other exchanges, for instance, I guess HTX is an example where we've only built the spot connector, but because HTX is an exchange, the code base, people can request bounties, and if there's kind of assets in the connector pot for HTX, we're going to allocate and have people build the perpetual connector and other channels, feeds, and other things to upgrade this connector. But overall, the last week in Singapore is really good. And not only did I kind of like not get injured playing in the soccer tournament that Gate.io put on, and also the basketball tournament that the Bear Cup put on. And unfortunately, Federico, our CPO, actually did get slightly injured playing the basketball tournament. He's en route back to Argentina right now. But we had a great chance to just meet with all the different partners we have. From the sexes like Binance and OKX, to the DEXs like Hyperliquid, which threw an amazing event in Singapore. But also we had a chance to meet with some of the new partners that we're starting to work with now, like Orca, Meteor, and Radio. So it was actually quite fun as well. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of the perks of the job in working crypto, to be able to go to these like random locations all over the world and actually, we should, because that's really how we do business in crypto. And because most companies are remote, so the chance to actually meet face to face is really important. Yeah, actually, as Emerald I mentioned, yeah, Hyperliquid actually, yeah, it was actually pretty interesting how many people we met who were trading Hyperliquid. Some both individuals and also some like large trading firms at their events, and it just seemed like they're starting to take a lot more market share in terms of the perpetual DEX from folks. So yeah, as mentioned, the documentation kind of like now reflects the fact that we have kind of both order book and spot exchanges in the CLOB section. And then this AIM section is really about how to basically connect using Gateway. Now, so Gateway, we've had a lot of challenges making the project work since we launched it 2 years ago. But given the fact that we continually have the community submitting new connectors into Gateway, I think it's a sign that it definitely serves a purpose out there, because so many exchanges, DEXs that is, and other chains have some type of like TypeScript and JavaScript SDK. And I think a lot of traders, unfortunately, are running bots in Python or C++ or Rust. And I think just the ability to standardize all of these DEX endpoints into something that, like a standard REST API is important for all the traders out there. Now, of course, unfortunately, with Gateway, we've always, I think that getting the design right was always kind of difficult. So right now, I think we have actually tried to clean up Gateway quite a lot recently. So if you look at the latest version, which I believe is on development, you'll see that we've cleaned up a lot of the old connectors we have, and now the connectors are really just focused on the AMM connectors and the code base. So now, before we had order book here as well, but going forward, we'll enforce the standard of it. So all the order book connectors are now done through the client itself. So that'll make it easier for people to add connectors and for us to enforce the standard. Meanwhile, all the AMM connectors to the DEXs and so forth will go through a Gateway, and basically in this category here. Now, and so and these AMM connectors will include both kind of the Uniswap V2 style constant product market maker exchanges, as well as the V3 style kind of concentrated liquidity ranges as well. I should mention, I'm probably not going to demo this today, but I probably will pretty soon, which is I'm working on a new repository that I think will be the successor to Gateway once it's done. It's currently just on my personal repo right now, but let me just pull up the link. But basically, it's called Larp, and I'm designing it with the kind of Solana DEXs in mind first. So the idea here is that this repo, which again is public, you can check it already, is kind of like basically the successor to Gateway. It offers not just a REST API, but also a CLI that allows you to kind of like interact and just like first like get your balances, get your portfolio, and perform other kind of common interactions that a DEX or blockchain might need. And it also has the standard endpoints that Gateway has for the various DEXs. Currently, it only supports Solana DEXs, specifically Orca right now. So I've mapped most of the Orca endpoints, and I'll probably do Radium as well. Meanwhile, Huang is working on the Meteor endpoints. But overall, we're hoping to kind of just get this connector, get this gateway, get this gateway replacement in a better shape before open sourcing it and having it for Hummingbot. But eventually, it should basically do the same thing, which is it'll just help integrate all the SDKs of the DEXs, standardizing them in one place, and making them available to Hummingbot client, QuantLab, and other interfaces we have. The main advantage of kind of rewriting the code is that I think that this is actually a much simpler code base. I kind of realized over time what was needed, but also what was not needed in Gateway. And this tries to kind of like take just a very minimalist approach to creating the needed middleware. In addition, I do think having the CLI makes a big difference. I'm just testing it myself, just being able to kind of like just do things on the fly is quite important. I'm still kind of working on some endpoints, but it should be ready to go. We're actually planning to announce it, and probably in about probably 2 or 3 weeks at the Avalanche conference in Argentina. So that's probably the other kind of like news we have, which is we're going to be doing more events around the Avalanche conference in Buenos Aires. It has done an annual conference, and so this year it happens that there is actually in Buenos Aires, October 16th, 19th. So I mentioned this because as you guys probably know, Fede is based in Argentina. We have lots of folks in the Hummingbot community in Buenos Aires, like the folks at our former alumni who now work at Injective, Bell, Nico, as well as Coin Alpha employees like Martin Sigwald and Tali, as well as probably other trading firms that are using Hummingbot out there. So what we're planning to do is to, I'll be speaking at this conference, which is on sometime around the state. I'll be kind of demoing some of the integrations that we have now, but also we want to kind of throw it's like a very small event, probably on the 15th, October 15th, in person in BA. And I think we're going to try to get some demos from us and from the community. And I think we'll also kind of we'll also request the community to, if you guys want to present something, we'll try to, either play the video or possibly live stream it when we're doing this event. The reason is because, we kind of want to try doing more in-person events. And it's just a good chance for us to do this along with, kind of our friends at Avalanche, possibly, other exchanges as well. And folks from the Hummingbot community. But overall, I think that kind of one thing we've learned just being in Singapore, meeting some of the folks that are actually using Hummingbot out there, is that we actually do have a lot of people who are using Hummingbot both individually as well as professionally. And so I think it's just a good chance for us to try to get the community together and kind of talk about what we're all doing. Because hopefully the way that kind of Fade and approach it is that ultimately we're just building them up for ourselves to use, because we're actually using Hummingbot day to day in production, trying to create bots that actually are making money. And so if we can do it for ourselves, then hopefully the community can also do it. And just sharing what we're doing is something that in the market making algo trading world is fairly uncommon, because many trading firms are extremely secretive. But we try to take a more open approach to kind of building bots and everything. So hopefully, with the new version of Hummingbot, we can do that. Okay, so I think we try to just cover all the random stuff we released recently. But I do want to mention in the latest 2.01 release, we now have the new DYDX connector. And then we also have a guide for DYDX, which is in this section here. So this guide covers kind of comprehensively how to get set up on DYDX, from creating a wallet, adding funds to it, then adding that wallet into Hummingbot, and then also using DYDX with both the client, adding, running a bot in the client, and with dashboard. So take a look at this guide. We'll be working with DYDX to try to promote this a bit more, and try to get the word out on how to use Hummingbot with DYDX, since they are now an official sponsor of Hummingbot Foundation. Let me answer a few questions. Looks like Emerald asks, when is the conference? Can anyone from Netherlands going there? If you guys want to try to self-organize, get together, if definitely. The conference is in Buenos Aires on October 16th to 18th. And I think we're going to try to do a Hummingbot event on October 15th, the day before the conference. Unfortunately, the DYDX, there is a geo restriction issue. So they do restrict heavily people, I think, from the US. So if you use DYDX, just take that into account once you're using the connector. We do realize that the community is very global. So anytime we do an in-person event, only a small subset of the actual community can attend. So that's why I think we're gonna make whatever we do, we're gonna try to live stream it. In fact, we actually tried this kind of 4 years ago with the conference called Liquidity 2020. This is in the height of the pandemic, but we did this online virtual event with I think Dystopia Labs, where we actually like presented lots of like where people presented like their liquidity strategies like that for this like conference we kind of sponsored. But overall, I do think we'll try something very similar, like an online conference with like maybe like some some offline IRL demos for me and Fede and whoever else is actually there. But if folks are online and want to present like whatever, like the strategy or something they built, this tangential towing bot, like the Emerald's Discord bot, for example, we're happy to just have you guys present. You can submit a video beforehand. We can play it maybe at the event. Mm. So yeah, great, awesome. Yeah, Emerald, I'm glad to see that you're using the backend API now for your Discord bot. That's exactly why we built it, yeah, because we feel like there should be more. You can do more with Hummingbot other than just run the client. So I'm really glad to see that you're actually using the backend API, this kind of stuff. I do think overall, like even for me, I think using QuantLab in conjunction with, let's say, backend API or Larp directly, I think is really the way to go, especially for like research purposes. Because if you're just kind of starting out, you don't really know exactly what your strategy is, and being able to kind of do research, look at like inspect some markets and do some backtesting in a notebook, I think is just like a more kind of like a practical experience than diving in just writing bot directly. Yeah, no, I do. The backend API is actually really, yeah, kind of powerful. That's kind of what I just recently started heading into the docs here, but to be honest, we really have not had a chance to like fully document everything. In fact, I would say, in my opinion, I think yeah, like just getting more folks to kind of create documentation for and help us, just write like proper professional grade docs for all the stuff we've added recently, I think is quite important. And so, when I talk to Fede about just trying to actually getting help with that in the future, because I do think there's something where it's like, I think both of us actually like to code and like to build more than we like to document. So yeah, that's kind of like something that we need to uh, get sorted out. But overall, yeah, I do think you guys should check out Backend API, QuantLab, and this new Larp repo that I'm working on. But because it's kind of like I think over time we're really starting to just add more shit to what the Hummingbot framework actually is. I think the one thing I want to cover today was also the voting. So we now have let's see, yes, we now have polls live for the Epoch 10 polls, and this time around we're actually changing things a bit because before we had polls for sexes, dexes, and chains. To be honest, that was more just like it's kind of like it's like a very surface level approach to the market. But the reality is, if you look at the code that we're actually managing, there are basically three types of connectors in the code base. There's spot CLOB connectors, which are essentially each connector is a folder in this exchange Hummingbot slash connector slash exchange folder. So these are the various spot connectors that are currently on the master branch. I think in development we've probably removed some of the ones that were removed in Epoch 9. So these are basically the connectors. Each one is housed in its dedicated folder. So because of that, I think it makes more sense to kind of like allocate maintenance toward the actual connectors we have. And so now we have a spot connector pool, a perp CLOB connector pool, and an AMM connector pool. So this pool here, this one will allocate 1 million HBOT across the top 4 vote getting connectors. You want to see, you can actually see in the HBOT tracker which ones are that we have, as well as the current HBOT allocated to them. And this column here will contain the new HBOT allocations that you guys decide by voting. So this we have this poll. We have the CLOB connectors poll. So these are the CLOB connectors we have. And so now, if you guys want to add a new one, you can also propose one with an NCP and with pull requests. And finally, we have the AMM connectors. The AMM connectors are the ones that are only in that are in gateway. And so notice that there are no more kind of like spot connectors in gateway. Going forward, we will only have like an order book spot and perp connectors in the client code base, and we'll use gateway only for AMMs. This should actually simplify things a lot. In the past, we kind of had kind of CLOB connectors and gateway as well, which created like confusing standards. Also, it was much harder to make CLOB connectors work with gateway because CLOB connectors ideally should have a WebSocket connection that's kind of like fetching the order book in real time. So and as mentioned, because I do anticipate when the Larp repo is done, and if the community wants to use that kind of as the main repo for DEX middleware, we'll probably have bounties to port over the other connectors over here to Larp. But overall, I do think Larp is much simpler than Gateway currently is. So we actually might use a different maintenance model for those. Overall, I think this change is going to be better because this is actually what we're doing with like the dev bounties, and I think this will make it cleaner in terms of like kind of like exactly what a connector is and what was needed to actually maintain it. Okay, so please vote in 2 weeks. Also, I will likely create another poll in the next day or so. This is kind of like something that I proposed in the in Discord, where we're going to vote for one centralized exchange partner. These are the larger ones we have, like Binance, KuCoin, Gate, and OKX. And whichever one the community votes for, we'll basically take 50% of the fee share that we earn from that exchange, and we'll use it to buy back the HBOT token at the beginning of next year. So I think that actually, let me pull up the Discord poll right now, so I'll talk a bit more about it. But the overall idea is that it's basically an experiment to see if we kind of like focus a community on a single kind of like exchange, which will kind of like allow us to kind of like basically see if we can increase the fee share and volume generated on that exchange. We're starting to actually experiment with kind of affiliate programs now, where if you run a bot on some of our partner exchanges, you can get back the fee share rebate or a portion of it. So yeah, basically this little thread here has a proposal about something that we're probably going to create a poll for. The basic idea is that we're going to vote for one exchange partner that we have, one of the ones that kind of are paying the bills by having a fee share agreement with. So those are probably Binance, OKX, CLOB or HCX, Gate.io, and KuCoin. So we'll vote for one of them, and basically over the next 1 quarter, so in October, November, and December, we'll track how much fee share we earn from that exchange, and at the end of the year, we'll basically take 50% of that, whatever that amount is, and go back and go and programmatically buy back the HBOT token in the open market. So I think that basically the idea here is that we're going to try to basically get people to hopefully trade on one exchange and try to do that. So I'll create the part of the poll in the next few days. I think HBOT Miner fan asked about the snapshot boost. Will that be possible in event? That's probably something we'll do separately as well, but probably not. The boost is kind of separate because basically what I think HBOT Miner referring to is the fact that in Snapshot, I think it's possible to like kind of boost voting. So we do want to incentivize voting, and we want to kind of make it easier to vote. However, I think the best way to create an incentive vote is actually to kind of make voting something that people actually want to care about, and because it impacts them. So overall, I think just kind of giving away tokens for people to vote, for the sake of it, is probably not a great use of HBOT. But I do think it's an interesting idea, especially because there's like a lottery component to it. So most likely, I think probably with the exchange CTO poll, we'll probably do a little experiment where we try to see if we can give a small bonus to try to attract people to vote. However, even if we do it, it'll probably be a very small amount of HBot because we don't want to be in a habit of like kind of buying kind of votes, so to speak. There really should be a natural incentive to vote because the topic at hand is something you care about. Frankly, if it's not something you care about, we actually don't want to artificially kind of create incentives because that actually kind of colors how you guys use HBot. Basically, what I'm saying is that if we put up a poll and no one wants to vote for it, that's probably a sign that we should be changing the nature of the voting. However, if we just throw lots of incentives at you guys to try to get you to vote, then we won't know. We won't kind of get that feedback from the market if something we put up it isn't really good. So that's why. But I do think that it'll be good to have a small incentive because obviously, not we're all busy. We have day jobs, and we can't have the time to vote all the time. But we also don't want to kind of like cue the incentives, so to speak. So we likely will experiment with snapshot boosts, but more as a way to have a small like a lucky draw type of reward, as opposed to something that if I vote, then I get rewarded for all the time. Try to look at these polls because I think that now that we have kind of spot, perp, and aim connectors, this really does align with how we maintain Hummingbot. This is how we review new connectors. Each one is a folder in this respective kind of category, and this is also how we allocate dev bounties. If there's an issue, then we actually try to pinpoint the issue and create a bounty based on how much funds are available in the pot. And of course, as I mentioned, I should mention that there isn't every connector needs a minimum of 200,000 HBot in votes in order for us to keep it in the code base, which is something that we try to do in order to ensure that all the ones in the code base are actually of high quality. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for this community call. I'll stay on for a few more minutes just to take questions from the audience. Now I'm actually waking up because I've had my coffee. So I think that the jet lag is starting to wear off. So I apologize for kind of being a bit loopy during this call. But I think we're actually doing an info session on market making next week on Tuesday. So I promise I will be a bit more awake for that. Let's see. Actually, I should actually vote. Actually, I'll probably place my votes later on. I think in the past I've voted in this poll just to show you guys how I vote. But I think everyone on this call should understand how to use Snapshot for now. So you guys should be able to vote here by yourself. And I'll probably do my vote soon. It looks like people have already started voting. It looks like so hopefully we should reach quorum. And this time around, we actually do want to start implementing these changes right away. So if you guys notice, we have already implemented the Epoch 9 changes in the development branch, but we want to make sure that we actually kind of focus our efforts on these changes who are supporting us and the ones that the community wants to have in the code base. Okay, well, I think that wraps up another community call. Hopefully, we'll try to meet you guys in person. Those of you who are going to the Avalanche conference in Buenos Aires, I'll start posting the pictures that we took recently in Singapore and probably the social lunch channel. We did have a chance to meet some members in the community as well. We had some fun. Our team offsite worked together a lot. We also met some folks who were like Bot Camp alumni, Singapore. And also team members from Corn Alpha. So, so that's why I think meeting in person as a remote company like ours is really important. And so that's kind of why we want to start doing that with the community as well. We won't be at DevCon. Well, at least I won't, because we're really trying to prioritize like only certain events every year. We're trying to do a lot for. So because Avalanche is throwing this summit in Buenos Aires, and because Fede is down there, it's kind of like a rare chance basically it's a rare excuse for me to go down there, actually meet with Fede and some other folks in BA who are now contributing to Hummingbot. So that's where Droopman, the community member who maintains the OKX connector is based. It's also where Coin Alpha, they have a lot of folks down there, as well as our friends at Injective. So because of that, that's kind of why we want to kind of just concentrate efforts on the Avalanche conference in Buenos Aires and kind of skip the other events that are happening and this year. And that's out. So you guys want anyone wants to come on to speak or whatever, yeah, feel free to raise your hand. No, basically Larp is just like it's basically a cleaner version of Gateway. So Gateway, I think it serves a needed purpose, but unfortunately, I think we kind of let the community kind of open it up too soon. So it's kind of like not as standardized as like a TypeScript middleware should be. So with Larp, I basically try to take all the lessons we learned from building Gateway over the last couple of years, and I try to only like create what's absolutely needed. So basically, if you look at like the way this is structured, just like Gateway, there is a folder for every DEX connector. So the Orca one is kind of the only one that's kind of built out, but basically there's basically a folder for every route that the Orca API supports, and each folder, for instance, like let's say add liquidity, we're going to try to standardize this add liquidity endpoint across all the AMM connectors that allow you to do this. And so the add liquidity request and response schema should basically be the same across all the kind of Uniswap V3 style exchanges that support it. So right now, Huang and I are still standardizing the endpoints, so that's why we haven't kind of officially published it yet. But overall, the idea is that a DEX like Orca will have like kind of like very specific endpoints that are like specific to that exchange. For example, Orca has the concept of position bundles, but I think all DEXs also have shared endpoints that they all have. For example, adding a position, removing a position, adding liquidity, removing liquidity. So if we can try to re-standardize those endpoints, we can ensure that if someone wants to copy this folder, add a connector for some other DEX, some other chain, they can kind of follow the same standard. And because every route is housed in its own file, it should be relatively kind of modular and self-contained. Also, I've also tried to upgrade the underlying technology used for Larp. So this is actually based on two kind of like frameworks that work very well together. One of them is called Octave, which is an open framework for building CLIs that Salesforce open sourced earlier this year. The other one is called Fastify, which is kind of like a replacement for Express, which we were using before in Gateway. But I think these two frameworks are kind of offer a lot more kind of like a lot more power under the hood. So that's why there should be like 20% of the code that we were using in Gateway. Actually, probably less. It's probably like 10%. Yeah, there's probably like 90% less code in this repo that accomplishes the same thing as Gateway when it's all done. So overall, I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, if you guys, you should always already be able to like install it and check it out. But the idea is that once we get this done, I will likely only maintain the Solana and the other kind of like key Solana DEX integrations. Wojak, our board member, who's very active here, will maintain the Meteor connector and probably other ones. And then folks from the community will maintain the connectors for other chains and other DEXs. So Michael asks, we did a connector for one mid-sized exchange fully tested. We are building for a few others. How can we contribute to the code base? That's a great question. So I think that the new documentation probably has more info about this. There's a dedicated developer section which talks about how to build and how to contribute connectors into the code base. One thing I should note is that a lot of people just maintain their connectors without getting it merged into the master branch of Hummingbot, which is what the governance process is for. However, if you do want to get your connector merged into the master branch, there is a process through the governance process to do that. Basically, that's what the new connector proposal is for. Basically, you would need to propose create a proposal along with the pull request, and if the pull request is approved, then we will merge. We'll basically approve and merge it in. Keep in mind, however, that in order for us to actually merge it in, your connector does have to fit the standard. So if let's say you build something that's non-standard, it's actually quite difficult for us to merge it in because it has to fit either the CLOB SPOT, CLOB Perp, or the AMM standard. Just to answer your question, Michael, there's a checklist for getting the technical development of the connector done. That's really for developers to, to as a guide for them to know what to build and what not to build. And then after a connector is built, you have the option of submitting it for contribution into the master open source code base. Now, for our standpoint, we only maintain one connector of each type. So usually, there's a cost to kind of having more connectors in the code base. So that's why there's simply a minimum amount of HBot you need to create a proposal, and then the community has a vote for whether they want that connector in or not. So we strongly encourage people, if you do create a proposal, you should go to our Discord and try to get the community to actually vote for your connector, explain why this exchange is useful for the community, and what they can do with Hummingbot. Can they earn rewards? Can they enjoy lower fees than they can for other exchanges? In other words, why should people switch from running boss on another exchange and want to run boss on your exchange? So there have been a few of these over the last kind of like, if you look at new connector proposals, there are usually continually exchanges who want their connectors into the code base. Some are approved, some are not approved, but overall, it's something we do try to allow for, to allow people to. It's an open source community owned code base, and so the HBOT token is really what people use to govern which connectors we support. Let's see. Another question for Michael. Are there any performance tests done between the V1 Cython and the V2 pure Python strategies? So that's probably not the right kind of so the strategies themselves use connectors, but the strategies are separate from the connectors. So over time, I would say, when we first designed Hummingbot originally back in 2019, more of the code base was in pure Cython. However, over the years, what we now do is we only use Cython for the parts where it actually really improves speed. For example, fetching order book updates. However, now we put the strategies in Python because it makes it a lot more approachable for people to like customize and design those strategies. The reason this is actually doesn't impact speed is because most of the speed is actually the network latency. So if you want to actually look at kind of like a speed proposal, I'll put this in Discord. One of our community members named Victoria, I think, has actually. We try to post like content that our users have created. So I think Vic has created a blog where she talks about analysis of latency across exchanges. So she did this using Hummingbot, but I think this and other posts that she does are a good way to think about kind of using Hummingbot, analyzing kind of like latency on different exchanges, and also kind of the nuances of kind of using Hummingbot and customizing it in different ways. Let me post it here because I think it's a really good blog, and I think it's a good example of how someone in our community has taken Hummingbot and used it in kind of ways that are not just out of the box. Her analysis of Binance latency. This kind of shows you that if you kind of look at Hummingbot and use it, the latency has the biggest impact of latency is really where you locate your servers. If you locate your servers, in Tokyo or in Osaka, close to where exchanges typically are, that makes a big difference in terms of round trip time. We have actually looked. I think we have looked at kind of like Cython versus Python, and it makes a very small difference actually, because that's just what happens locally on your machine. When you're running a bot, the time loop through your like an order book tick is very small compared to the time it takes your machine to like send a request to the binary server, and also get a response back. So I think one of my biggest tips is think more about where you're locating your bot, and where the exchange is. That has a bigger impact than kind of what language you use for your bot. But take a look at Victoria's blog, because I think that she really has a lot more fairly sophisticated strategies, like funding arbitrage, how to kind of lend, and how to borrow a risky token and trade with that instead of buying it outright. I think as a preview, I think we're going to update the homepage pretty soon. It's been a while since we updated the homepage, but overall, I think that because of all the stuff we added recently, we'll probably update this homepage a bit. But the docs are already updated, so please go through the docs. Try the new guides we have. So we have this custom controller guide that our community member Patrick submitted recently that helps you build a custom V2 controller. We have this DYDX connector guide that we added recently, and we'll probably add more info related to to XRPL, our new XRPL connector soon, as well as other kind of components we now have. So overall, I think being in Singapore, meeting members of the community, I think it's really kind of showing us how large the global user base is. We now have some fairly large trading firms that are kind of basically building their operations on top of Hummingbot now. Some of the leading market makers in industry, like Coin Alpha and Influx, have grown now, and they're kind of taking more market share because they can just basically outsource their engineering to Hummingbot instead of hiring lots of devs. So it's just really exciting to see that people are kind of starting to depend on the software that we built for to actually run their businesses on top of us. So and that's why I think for us, it's really it's kind of like it really calls out a need to improve the documentation that we have to ensure that people out there can use it correctly. Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the call today. Thank you for everyone for joining, and we'll try to see you either online or in person soon. Okay. Bye, everyone.